Hello, what is going on, guys? Hockey Guy 1 here. Welcome to my review of Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey is directed by Kathy Ann and stars Margot Robbie, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Journey Smollett-Bell, Ella J. Brasco, and Ewan McGregor. So the story is about Harley Quinn after she breaks up with the Joker, and he kind of wants to end up trying to make a name for herself, and then there's this there's a Black Mask who wants to kill her, so he goes after her, and then randomly there's just this Cassandra Caterson who ended up stealing this diamond from Black Mask, so she has to end up finding her and try and return her to Black Mask to make sure that it doesn't end up being killed, and then they can't involve, and they have to try and outrun all the Black Mask with all the rest of the Birds of Prey members, and it's pretty much the story. So I guess I'm gonna say Harley Quinn was done decently. I mean, there were some aspects of her character that I liked, but there were other aspects of her character that didn't really work. But right now, let's talk about the things that work for her character. I do kind of like how they try to have her make a name for herself, and it's kind of them trying to be herself outside of the Joker, and just trying to get over it and basically be herself kind of character. And if that was like the whole character in the movie, it probably would have been much better. And Margot Robbie does do a pretty good job as Harley Quinn. I mean, she does feel like the character, and she seems like she likes being in the movie, and she does seem like she's into the role pretty well. I mean, when she's delivering her lines, she does sound like she's actually trying, and it actually feels like the character whenever she says a line. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Journey Smollett-Bell, I mean, they did an okay job. I mean, they didn't really have much to work with, so I think they just did the best they can that they worked with, so they did do a decent job for what they were given. And outside the climax, the action is actually pretty decent. I mean, there are a few scenes that I kind of liked. I mean, and they're just like the whole kind of chasing where things on the motorcycle, and then there's also just kind of beginning, there's fights out of them. And I just think that it's okay. I mean, and it's actually a pretty good action scenes, and these ones other than a climax that I'll get into, but I didn't really like it later. Then the cinematography was actually pretty good. I mean, each scene does feel like they use the right camera angle, and each camera angle that they use, I do feel like it ends up being captured well, and it does really kind of make it capture the thing. Like, there's scenes where they kind of use close-ups, and they do a pretty good job with that. And then, of course, White House, and I think I did a pretty good job with both. I mean, they two haven't kind of like show landscape scene. Each scene is actually pretty well shown of the landscape, and I do think they did do an overall pretty good job with the cinematography. That said, this movie does have a lot of negatives. I mean, the story is just a complete mess. I mean, this movie is supposed to be a whole Birds of Prey origin story, but they focus so much on Harley Quinn that it honestly just feels like it's just a Harley Quinn standalone movie. I mean, it literally just feels like that. I mean, that's how poorly executed the story is. And even with that, there's also just it's kind of all over the place at times. I mean, it's just kind of showing they're after Harley Quinn, but all of a sudden they come up with this Cassandra Cain plot that doesn't really make sense to just completely change turns like that, and then just in the middle of it, they kind of have all these random backstories. I mean, they're kind of more necessary, but I don't feel like it really makes sense to put it in the middle of the second act when you just put that in the first act. I mean, it's just that it really feels like this movie just doesn't create one consistent story throughout, and it just kind of feels like a mess, if I'm being honest. The whole structure of the story is kind of a mess as well. I mean, you kind of have the first act, which is pretty much just kind of showing, hey, Harley Quinn broke up with the Joker just to try and get it to connect to Suicide Squad somehow. And then you kind of go into the second act, which is pretty much just bunch of things. I mean, it's like, this one is like the biggest mess of the movie. I mean, there's Harley Quinn, is pretty much kind of showing her getting away from, like, pretty much everyone going after her for whatever reason, and there's just, it's like, whole backstories that I said that they just keep going back, like when they first show Black Canary, and Huntress, they randomly just kind of go back in the middle of the movie and say the origin story, and to be honest, that just leaves the second act kind of a mess, and it just doesn't really work to be like right in the middle of the movie, if I'm being honest. And honestly, it's other than that, they really don't do much of these characters, if I'm being honest, which I'll get back to later. And then in the second act, it just kind of goes all over the place and doesn't really take sense. I mean, all of a sudden, it changes to a Cassandra Cain plot because she stole Black Mass Diamond, which is just kind of a plot coincidence, if I'm being honest, and I really don't like it when movies just do plot coincidences like that. And then there's third act, which is pretty much it's just kind of a mess. I mean, it has the climax, which is a very underwhelming action scene, which I'll talk more about it later, and then it's just kind of ends kind of randomly and just ends with Harley Quinn stealing a car, and that's just kind of a weird ending for this movie, and just doesn't really feel like it just kind of feels weird and doesn't really feel like a good way to end this movie. Then there's the pacing, which is just a complete mess. I mean, it honestly feels like it's so much longer than an hour and 45 minutes, which is, the runtime is an hour and 45 minutes, and the movie feels like it's so much longer than that. I mean, it just kind of, mainly because of how, like, all over the place the story is, it really affects the pacing. I mean, it makes the movie feel like it never ends, and it goes on so long because they made the mistake again of kind of overstuffing the story with too much, and then, I mean, like earlier, it just doesn't, if they, like, removed the Cassandra Cain plot, the movie probably would have been so much better, and that especially goes for pacing because of how much this movie feels like it never ends, and it just feels really boring at times, and just really feels like it doesn't end, to be honest. Now we're going to talk about the climax and the action scene. I mean, that action scene was just a complete joke. I mean, they make it, like, take place in this Joker funhouse kind of place, and to be honest, just the whole action scene feels like it was terribly shot. I mean, it's just kind of Harley Quinn and the other Birds of Prey members fighting off members. I mean, just the whole place where it takes place and just is not the right place for an action scene, in my opinion. I mean, just have me in the fun house, and I don't really feel like immersed in that. But even with that, the action scene just kind of feels like a joke. I mean, it's basically just Harley Quinn going around hitting people while they just fighting off. I mean, it's just terribly choreographed, and it really feels like they could have done so much better with the climax of this movie, and it's supposed to be like the top points of the whole movie, yet it completely fails. Something that I didn't like about Harley Quinn's character, I mean, it's just the whole thing what she's trying to do with Cassandra Cain. I mean, everything there just kind of feels like she's doing it out of selfish need because she wants to stay alive for Black Mass, and to be honest, that just doesn't really work that much, to be honest. I mean, I know eventually she kind of like, he's friends with Cassandra, but it doesn't really work in my opinion. I mean, it's just completely random, and it's just kind of a random choice that came out of nowhere. I mean, it doesn't really make that much sense with how the movie was progressing, and it's just kind of random, if I'm being honest. Black Canary is just, honestly, just really poorly written, if I'm being honest. I mean, they really just don't do enough with her. I mean, pretty much what they do with Black Canary in this movie is they kind of show her as the singer, and it's kind of have her have a backstory, and just drives this one person who works for Black Mask, and honestly, that's literally her whole character. There's, like, nothing else to her character. I mean, there's no reason for her to be teaming up with Harley Quinn because is they don't really do enough of them. I mean, they don't really know each other that well, so they don't really have that much chemistry with each other, and it just that once again they poorly develop the Birds of Prey members. That happens. And same thing can go for Huntress. I mean, they don't really do pretty much anything with Huntress, if I'm being honest. I mean, they just show her backstory and then show her in a couple scenes. That's honestly about all they do with Huntress. It's just only thing about her character is that she shoots crossbows, and that's it. I mean, that's pretty much her entire character. There's, like, no character development to her, and to be honest, it's just putting her in the whole Birds of Prey, you gotta think, well, it's like Black Canary, it just kind of feels like it poorly developed. I mean, just this whole Birds of Prey team just doesn't feel like a team because they don't really know each other that well, and they don't really develop with each other, and it just feels like they just randomly made them a team because they're just like, oh, remember the name? Oh yeah, that's right, it's called Birds of Prey, not Harley Quinn. And Cassandra Cain is also poorly written. I mean, there's just not much to her. She just has to steal a couple things, and then just goes to jail. Honestly, other than that, what is her character? I mean, he doesn't really have that much of it. I mean, she just kind of is there in this movie, and that's about it. Just a plot device, and she doesn't really have that much character, and it doesn't really work out very well. I mean, she just is this and who stole this diamond just so they can go after her, and to be honest, it's just a plot device. Other than that, there's no character development is lacking for her, just like about every other character in this movie, and it's just really poor that they can do this with such a character like Cassandra Cain. Honestly, Roman Sionis, or Black Mask, is just a poorly written villain. I mean, pretty much all he really is just this rich guy who wants a bunch of money, so he wants to go after Cassandra Cain because she has the diamond that he wanted, and honestly, to be honest, that's just kind of a poor motivation, if I'm being honest. I mean, he's just a poorly written villain. It really just doesn't feel that intimidating. I mean, the most intimidating thing he does in this whole movie is cut open a few people, and honestly, that was literally like one scene, and doesn't really have anything else that's intimidating after that. I mean, and it's just how poorly written that the DCU can make their villains. It's just shocking. I mean, like, there hasn't been a single good one yet, and Black Mask is no different. I mean, he just really just feel like he just wants to go after Harley Quinn because he just wants to kill her and doesn't really have a reason to do so, and then Cassandra Cain just because of the whole diamond thing, and that's literally it. I mean, he's unintimidating and just a poorly written villain with very little motivation, and he's unintimidating. The two worst things you can possibly do for a villain. And Ewan McGregor in his role as Black Mask did not do good. I mean, he's the one actor that I really felt like he did not do good in his role. I mean, honestly, I was kind of skeptical when I saw him being cast in, and to be honest, I can see why after that. I mean, he definitely does not seem like he's portraying a villain that much with the way his delivery is. I mean, his delivery doesn't really give the villainous feeling, and it just kind of feels like he's delivering it as if he's a normal hero rather than a villain. I mean, his delivery just doesn't feel as intense as a villain should be. I mean, it just really feels like he's just saying the line and then doesn't really give any intimidating feeling to it to make it feel like he's playing a villain, and that's just one of the big problems with this. And to be honest, I'm just kind of disappointed because Ewan McGregor is a good actor, but in this movie did not do good. Visual effects did not look good. I mean, this movie, I guess it doesn't have the highest budget, I mean, like $80 million, but it's just that it honestly feels like the visual effects that they still could have done better with it, if I'm being honest. I mean, kind of looking at it, like that one scene where she goes in there and shooting bullets on police officer, I mean, just when it bounces off the police officer, it just looks fake and unconvincing, if I'm being honest. I mean, it just It's hilarious how bad that scene looked, if I'm being honest. I mean, it's just kind of embarrassing, if I'm being honest. And then even when Black Canary kind of, like, uses her one power that she has, and in that, it doesn't even look that good. I mean, it kind of looks fake. I mean, just all those things that kind of come out of it, this does not look convincing. Honestly, the soundtrack was bad. I mean, all the songs in this just felt completely random. It doesn't really feel like they put it in to fit the scene, and just felt like they're like, oh, and just kind of like randomly picking songs. Doesn't really feel like the moments that much, but they just pick the songs because the movie needs to have a song, and it just feels like it could have done so much better with the song choices in this movie. It honestly feels like that each scene really that they use the song just doesn't work for the scene that it's in. The costume designs were not good. I mean, Harley Quinn's design, I mean, I really don't get why they don't just use the normal black and red comic book costume. I mean, whenever they use a different costume in DCEU, it just looks kind of bland. I mean, she doesn't really feel that different from a normal kind of person with the costume that they give her. I mean, I wish that they kind of gave her, like, a different kind of costume, even if it's not the comic book costume. At least make her look somewhat intimidating and different from, like, an average person. And I think kind of goes for Black Canary and Huntress. They don't really feel like they look that different from a normal person, and it's just kind of disappointing how they do that. So overall, Birds of Prey was another bad installment in the DCU, so I'm going to give Birds of Prey a 3 out of 10. That was my review of Birds of Prey. What are your thoughts on Birds of Prey? Tell me in the comments below. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.